One of the things we can do in lieu of using an if statement if we have a lot of different scenarios to go through is use what is known as a switch case statement, which I'm going to demonstrate right here. Let's say I have this knife. This knife is what the user entered, and we want to be able to take what our knife option is and switch it out. So I can switch it out with, let's say, a spoon, a fork, or 2 different cups. So those are the 5 different objects I'm working with. So in a switch case, we get an option to switch, and then we get to build different cases and tell it what to use. We're going to use 2 new vocabulary words with this. It's going to be break, and it's going to be default. So let me go ahead real quickly and set this up. So what are we going to switch? We have the knife. That's what is holding our switch data. So we're going to switch the knife. And within our switch, now we have different cases. So I'm going to assign the spoon 0, the fork 1. This cup will be 2. And anything else that our user entered in knife is going to be this green cup. So, as I said, the spoon is going to be 0. So case 0, because right now all we're going to use are numbers in our cases. It will be spoon. And then we have to use the keyword break to break up the information. Well, not break up the information, but to break the selection of cases, because we found what we need. Now we need to break it. Otherwise, it's always going to go to the very end if we forget to use that word break and won't return our information properly. In case 1, and you do use the colon after each case, we use a knife, or that's a fork. Use fork. We found, if that's what we found what we want, we break it again. Case number 2, it's going to be our summer cup. See, it's got, where's the camera right there? A little umbrella. We'll use some camel casing there, summer cup. Now, as I said, this green cup is when every other case has been met. So instead of using the word else, we're going to use the word default. Default is the exact same meaning as else in case switches. Default, green cup. And since that is our default, we do not need an if statement. We just simply, or not an if statement, but we don't need a break. We don't need to use break for default. So I'm going to do another example here in a second that uses numbers, but I thought maybe it'd be easier to start off using objects. Here's another real simple example of a switch case statement that we can use. We're going to have the user, for example, enter in a number and have it tell it what letter of the alphabet it is. So I'm just going to do a couple steps to it. So here's our example. We switch number, and this follows exactly with our case example. So case 0, our letter will equal the letter A, and that'll be a string. Because we found the letter we want, we could do break. If we did not want to account for 0 and have them enter a 1 instead, like someone probably would, we could do that as well. 0 would then just fall under the default. Case 2, letter would equal B. And once again, we go ahead and break. We would continue this pattern all the way down. Ellipsis just means a continuation, which you will see that a lot in the AP test, where there's ellipses inside code saying, there's stuff here, but it's not really important to what you need to solve for the problem. All the way down, then we'll do case 26, letter equals Z. Practice good spacing there, and then we'll break. So in this instance, we account for every letter of the alphabet. We did not account for if our user entered an incorrect piece of information. So that would be our default here. Default would be letter equals invalid entry. Have to bring that over a little bit here. And because it's an invalid entry, then the user would have the opportunity probably to enter again if we gave them such the opportunity. But we took care of all our possible scenarios, so usually the else is good to practice having default entry, invalid entry, every other possible scenario. So if our user enters a 0, negative number, anything above 27, there's not a valid letter of the alphabet to go with that. So that's a simple example of our case switch scenario. It's going to switch whatever's after the word case. We're not going to use strings or letters or text right now with that because there's some different things we can do with that. There's a more proper way to work with string comparisons than using case statements. And that is how a switch case works.